Phillip Schofield and Holly Willoughby looked sombre as they joined mourners on Friday at London's Westminster Hall, where the Queen's coffin remains until her funeral on Monday. The This Morning hosts both donned all black ensembles as they prepared to film a segment for Tuesday's episode of ITV morning show from the historic London establishment. Holly, 41, also donned a face mask as she walked in front of her co-host Phillip, 60, before the pair paid their respects to Her Majesty, who is lying in state at Westminster Hall following her death on September 8. Although mourners, including as their ITV colleague Susanna Reid, have been standing in overnight queues to see the Queen's coffin, with some lining up for more than 14 hours to pay their respects, Holly and Phil were able to skip the long lines as they joined a different entrance queue especially designated for the press. They did not get to pay their respects to the Queen in the same way as queuing members of the public, but they filmed in a section put aside for press, a source told Mail Online about Holly and Phil's sombre visit to Westminster Hall. This morning's Friday show has been cancelled in favour of rolling ITV news coverage in the lead-up to the Queen's state funeral. The programme will be back on screens on Tuesday, they added. Although Holly and Phil got to skip the long queues, their ITV colleague Susanna Reid opted for a more personal experience when paying her respects to the Queen as she joined mourners in a line which lasts more than 7 hours. The Good Morning Britain host, 51, said she experienced a moment in history as she lined up with thousands of other mourners to pay her respects to Queen Elizabeth, who died on September 8 at the age of 96. The much-loved TV host was pictured standing alongside her beloved mum, as well as a close pal, as the trio stood in the cold London breeze for over 7 hours to say a final goodbye to the longest-running monarch in the history of the United Kingdom. Susanna wrapped up against the chilly September weather in long trench coat with cosy fleece lining as she stood in line all night to see the Queen's coffin. The TV host looked sombre as she stood alongside her mum in the early hours of Friday morning at Westminster Hall. After finally laying eyes on Queen Elizabeth's coffin in what was one of the most emotional moments of her life, Susanna took to Twitter to share her experience with those who are planning on doing the same thing over the weekend. Evening, along with my lovely mum and her very good friend, I have just experienced a moment in history, witnessing the Queen lying in state in Westminster Hall. At once majestic and peaceful, Susanna tweeted. She went on, "If you are planning to queue, here are our tips. We joined at 1:23 p.m. near Butler's Wharf and entered Westminster Hall at 8:43 p.m., 7 hours 20 minutes. Wear the comfiest shoes you own. Go with someone if you can, although everyone in the queue was friendly. Don't carry too much in a bag, water is freely available and there are lots of cafes along the route. Also plenty of toilets. I put my phone on low battery mode and it lasted the entire time. The first part of the queue is for wristbands. Ours were given out at Tower Bridge about an hour after we began queuing. There is no queue jumping, people waited patiently for wristbands, and once you have one you can leave the queue for snacks/loose stops and slip back in. Read more Queen's funeral plans. Rules to see the Queen lying in state. 30-hour queue for 5 miles to see coffin. Queen's clever design for her hearse. What is happening today?